The Prime Minister needs to know how anxious hundreds of families are. In the last few weeks, they've been sent all over the country or told there are no tests. It can't be brushed off. On the 21st of this year, the Health Secretary said anybody who needs a test can get a test. It's the most important thing that you can do to stop the spread of this virus. This is a very serious issue. And the government line on this seems to be changing all the time. Yesterday, the director of NHS Test and Trace said, "Can I offer my apologies to anyone who can't get a test? It's a laboratory processing problem." This morning, the Health Secretary changed tack and appeared to blame the public. I note that he made a statement yesterday and faced questions and didn't say anything about the excuse that he puts forward this morning that emerged overnight. So who's right? The Director of Test and Trace, this is a laboratory problem, or the Health Secretary, it's the public's fault?
Mr. Speaker, I of course sympathise with all those who are facing difficulties getting tests as fast as they want, but demand is at an unprecedented high, particularly because demand for asymptomatic patients. But he should know that this country has done more tests, 17.6 million, than any other country in Europe. That is thanks to the, and he likes these international comparisons, Mr. Speaker, that is thanks to the efforts of NHS Test and Trace. They are, in my view, doing an absolutely heroic job in spite of the difficulties that they face. They've massively raised their output and testing, and they will be up to testing 500,000 tests a day by the end of October. This is an organisation that is working heroically to contain the spread of this disease, and it requires the public to trust this organisation and to participate, Mr. Speaker. Yesterday, the Right Honourable Gentleman said it was on the verge of collapse. I think those were ill-chosen words. I think he now regrets those words. I think he should reflect and he should take them back.
Why can't we just hear from the Prime Minister an honest answer? If he stood at dispatch box and said, "I know something's gone wrong in the last couple of weeks. We've been getting hundreds of examples of people being sent all over the place or being told there's no test. I've looked into it. I've worked out what the problem is. Here's my plan," people might be reassured. But as ever, he pretends the problem isn't there. The infection rate is rising. This is the very point we need a functioning testing regime. But far from the world-beating system we were promised, the government can't even get the basics right. The government is lurching from crisis to crisis. It still lacks even basic incompetence. This is what's holding it. Lacks competence. Yes, Prime Minister, it lacks competence. This is what's holding Britain back. So my final question is this: when is this problem with test, trace and isolate going to be fixed?
Mr. Speaker, I think he was on the money when he said that this government lacked incompetence. And if I can just say to him that we are working flat out to address all the issues confronting us today, including trying to get the infection rate down. And we are getting on, Mr. Speaker, with taking the tough decisions, making the tough calls that will take this country forward. When it came to saying schools were safe, he was silent because he didn't want to offend his union bosses. And when left-wing anarchists, Mr. Speaker, tried to destroy the freedom of the press, he was silent because for some reason he didn't want to offend crusty left-wing anarchists. And when it comes, by the way, to sticking up for our UK internal market, Mr. Speaker, and for delivering on the will of the British people, one of the most important issues facing us today, he is totally silent on this bill that obsesses the rest of his backbenchers. He's totally silent. Great ox, once again, has stood on his tongue. He has nothing at all to say about that subject today because he doesn't want to offend the huge number of his backbenchers who want to overturn the verdict of the people and take us back into the EU, which is, of course, what he wants to do himself. This government gets on and takes the tough decisions on behalf of the British people, delivering thousands of jobs through our Kickstart scheme, a record-breaking investment in affordable housing, £12 billion affordable housing programme, and getting on with all our work, working with the British people and working with the Right Honourable Gentleman, if he would only do so, to get coronavirus defeated and to take our country forward. We take the tough calls. All he does is sit on the sidelines and carp, Mr. Speaker.